to Amish physics lesson 3.5 friction. Today we will be discussing. I'm just playing. There's nothing wrong with your headphones. It's just me messing with you. That's what I got you there for a second, didn't I? All right. Anyways, 3.5. Let's talk about some friction. All right. There's two types of friction that we're going to deal with. The first is called kinetic, and the second is called static. And technically, we're going to deal with static first, and then kinetic. But either way, we're resisting the motion of an object. So one happens when an object is actually in motion. That's called kinetic. And one is when an object is trying to move but doesn't quite get there, and that's called static. So with static friction, this is the amount of friction that we need to keep an object from actually moving. Is how much we would need in order to overcome that static friction, in order to get it moving. And this is a lot of times called the lazy friction because it doesn't actually do anything. All it does is equal out our applied force up to a certain amount. So if you are applying 50 newtons, it would equal 50. If you're applying 100 newtons, it would equal 100. If you're applying 2,000, it would equal 2,000, up until what we call the maximum amount of static friction. And that maximum amount of static friction is found by taking the coefficient of friction, this mu for static, and multiplying that by the normal force. And that coefficient is then found by taking our max and dividing it by our normal force. All right, so let's take a look at this. So let's say we have a 50 kilogram box that's sitting on the floor. Yay, 50 kilograms, there we go. That means its weight, or its force of gravity, is equal to 50 times negative 9.8. Now, since it's sitting on the floor, that means it's not going through the floor, which means that there's a normal force, or something that's holding it up, which is 50 times 9.8. Right? And those two should balance out. They should equal each other, otherwise it would be moving up or down. And this is very important to remember because we're going to need this later on as we go through. All right, so that equals 490, and that equals negative 490. Sweet. All right, it takes a force of more than 300 newtons. So remember, with static friction, it'll equal the force up to its maximum. So if I was pushing with 100 newtons, it would equal at 100 newtons. If I was pushing with 200, it would equal 200. If I was pushing at 299, it would equal 299, and nothing would happen. But once I hit that maximum, which is 300, it's going to move. So 300 is our max. Force static max equals 300 newtons. And if you want to think to the left or the right, whatever, that doesn't matter. That's just a negative or positive sign for direction. Let's just call it positive. So what's the coefficient of friction? Well, our coefficient of static friction is equal to this 300 divided by our normal force, which is 490. And since it's a ratio, it is not does not have any units, so it's just 0.61. All right, now let's look at this example over here. Let's say we have a 20 kilogram box. It's sitting on the floor. The coefficient of static friction is 0.65. So again, what you're going to do is figure out the normal force. Normal force should be equal to 20 kilograms times 9.8. It's just sitting on the floor. So it's directly opposite of what the force of gravity is. It's a perpendicular force. So in this case, our normal force is 196. All right. Now to figure out our force max, we multiply by our coefficient, and that gives us 127.4 newtons. So anything less than this, force of friction is going to equal it. So if it's 120, force of friction is going to equal 120. If it's 50, it's going to equal 50. Anything that is less than this maximum amount, doesn't matter what you apply, as long as it's less than this, nothing's going to happen. So if it's 80, less than, equal to, or greater than 127, it's less than. So what does that mean? It's not going to move. Nothing's going to happen. Well, what about 100? Well, 100 newtons, yes, it's more than 80, but it's still less than our max. So again, nothing's going to happen. But now we have 130 newtons. So what does that mean? It's going to move. How much it moves by depends on the next section, which is the coefficient of kinetic friction. And I will break this up into 2 videos just so that we don't have a super long upload time. All right? So catch me again later for kinetic friction, which will be up momentarily. Okay, talk to you later. Goodbye.